Hi and welcome to Motomouth. I'm Moshe K. Levy, and today we're going to be talking about mopeds. Now, what's left to be said about old mopeds that hasn't been said already? We know all the jokes. I mean, they're painfully slow and abysmally outdated and hopelessly primitive smoke belchers. Sure, they're all that, and it seems most everyone has something negative to say about mopeds until they ride one. Ride a moped, and you won't be able to wipe the big, silly grin off your face for hours afterwards. And there are plenty of delightfully irrational reasons for this. My own moped obsession began at age 11, when my dad brought home this shiny new 1986 Motomarina Sebring. Now, this thing had a 49cc Franco Morini motor and full fenders and mag wheels and a top tank design which resembled a traditional motorcycle silhouette. And Dad used it to commute back and forth to work a few times before the novelty of barely braking 30 miles an hour wore off. But I knew one day that moped would be mine. I remember polishing that thing every weekend and saving every penny I could earn mowing lawns in order to buy a helmet. Now, here in New Jersey, a moped license was obtainable at age 15, and the wait was excruciating. I was counting down the seconds. And the night before my 15th birthday, I set up camp outside the DMV so I could be first in line. And I went in and I aced my test and I hit the road for the very first time on my own. Now, we motorcyclists like to talk about the sense of freedom that riding provides, but in truth, that feeling pales exponentially in comparison to my first day ripping around the neighborhood solo on my moped, because adults already have some idea of what freedom is. But at age 15, the norm is to be wholly dependent on your parents or on older friends to be able to get anywhere. And becoming one of the select few to be liberated from adults at that age, that was independence. Anyway, my 15-year-old self soon found other like-minded riders, and together we spent every second of every day either riding on or wrenching on our mopeds. And we learned through trial and error how to modify them to reach highway speeds, shrieking like a bunch of hostile mosquitoes down the local roads. I mean, our lives became only about increasing displacement and perfecting the jetting and the carburetors and changing the sprockets to find the ideal balance between acceleration and top speed, adjusting the timing, and endlessly fiddling with a myriad of other hop-up parts. We had no responsibilities and the boundless enthusiasm of youth and the spare time to put it to work. All of this came to the fore last week as I was returning home from a week-long tour of New England on my usual BMW RT. I was about 50 miles from home when I spotted this woman on a Puch Maxi moped ready to pull out in front of me on the road. Now, I haven't seen one of those since I was a kid, so I pulled alongside her and I started wildly motioning for her to stop, and she complied, and I proceeded to wax lyrical about how I grew up with these mopeds and I hadn't seen one up close in decades. And in an unexpected twist, she asked me to follow her home for a surprise. So she pedal starts the Puch and sets off, and I followed behind her, breathing in that huge plume of burnt two-stroke oil that defined my mid-teens. And we pulled into her driveway and got off the bikes, and she calls for her husband, and he wheels out his own Maxi. So these two had matching silver Maxis from 40 years ago. Here's a picture she took of me with them. So now I start blubbering like a lunatic about my teenage memories, when finally the perplexed husband said, "Buddy, it looks to me like you got back from a big trip on a $20,000 BMW motorcycle and you're wearing a lot of fancy gear. You look like a serious motorcyclist. Why the hell are you so excited about a couple of old mopeds?" So I used the old Harley slogan. I said to him, "If you have to ask, you wouldn't understand. All those fond memories from my teens buried dormant for 30 years in there instantly rocketed to the front of my middle-aged cerebral cortex." So I got home and I immediately began investigating all things moped. And thankfully, I found a vibrant community of local riders and forums full of enthusiasts and a small network of shops that stock all the necessary parts for maintenance. And all of this is going to expand, no doubt, by what the Wall Street Journal recently called the vintage moped resurgence. Nostalgia, as it turns out, is quite a powerful force to reckon with. I finally found a vendor with a small batch of new old stock Slovenian Tomos mopeds for sale, imported all the way from Malta. And I got this black Flexer here, complete with ultra luxurious features like oil injection and turn signals. I mean, this is very highbrow stuff for the moped world. This thing has a crude two-stroke 49cc engine with maybe 1.5 horsepower. And just so you get an idea of how tiny this thing is, here's a broken piston I saved from my Moto Marina moped when I was 15. And here, for comparison, is a piston from my 1998 Harley 1200 Sportster. And here's a piston from my 1973 BMW 750. I mean, this thing is ridiculous. Everything is so basic, and yet it's all you really need to transport you back in time. Let's go for a spin. Oh God, so much fun. I really have no idea how we lived going 40 to 50 miles an hour or more on these things, wearing flip-flops and t-shirts. I mean, I'm petrified just going 30 miles an hour on this now. Anyway, if you had one once and want to explore the possibility of reviving an old moped or finding a new one, there's a ton of information online that wasn't there when we were young. My favorites so far are the mopedarmy.com forums and YouTube channels like Moped Problems for second-stroke mopeds in New York City and Travis Tutorials. There's another one called David Fixes His Shit, which indeed he does, step-by-step on various moped brands. And there's even a French guy in California with a channel called Tomahawk Tuning, where he's just screaming in French while test riding mopeds he's fixed. I mean, I have no idea what he's saying, but it's still entertaining. There are also shops that will sell you an already restored and pristine machine if you don't want to get any dirt under your fingernails. I do want some grease under my fingernails, so I'm already picking out some Go Fast goodies, and maybe in the winter we'll blow the top end out to 70cc and modify some other stuff. Either way, stock or modified, these things are just a blast for scooting around town, every bit as much fun as I remember from 30 years ago. And now you know why I have this big silly grin on my face. Until next time, keep the shiny side up, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more of your favorite Moto Gear reviews.